Welcome to Self-Publishing Authors, home for candid talks and honest recommendations. From book editing to book marketing, from author journeys to inspirations. Hosted by Gurhan Demirkan.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gurhan, and I am coming at you from Austin, Texas. Again, last time we met, we had some technical difficulties. It was beautiful outside, but today, not so beautiful, but that's okay. It's kind of rainy, but nice and warmish. So I have Terry with me, Terry Persun, and he is a multi-award winner author. And I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Terry. Please introduce yourself.
Sure, that sounds great. Let's see. I grew up in hills of Pennsylvania. I'm a technical writer right now. I make my living that way. I do science and technology articles for high-tech companies and manufacturers and that sort of thing, and also do marketing strategy for them. I was in the Air Force for 6 years working on airborne navigation systems equipment. I have 2 degrees, one in engineering and one in writing, master's in writing. I worked on everything from, airborne stuff to top secret things in the Air Force to, NASA. I've been doing this for quite a while, and I'm either at one point I did a lot of engineering and have a patent or two, and now I pretty much write about all that stuff. So it's been fun.
So the secret stuff, are they public?
Not now. Well, actually, some of it is public now. You can find some of the stuff that I've done.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but you can say it was top secret at one time. And so
1952.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah, I was in the Air Force from 72 to 77. So
yeah. Oh, that's I didn't even come to America by then.
Oh,
Yes, I was in high school back in the old
oh,
country.
oh, don't even say it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you questions about your awards. Of course, you have multiple awards
Right.
and on writing. Can you tell me about those awards, please?
Yeah, so I've got awards for pretty much everything I've written over the years, from the technical writing stuff to poetry to fiction. More of it in fiction because that's where I tend to spend a lot of my time. Everything from, I've got 2 Book Excellence Awards, a couple of U.S. Book News Awards, IPPY Awards, Star Washington, and runners up in a handful of other type awards. I've been doing this a long time, so it's easy to, not easy, but it's normal for me to get the material out there at some of these contests and see how they go. And so I've been very lucky with a lot of my work. Maybe
you should start teaching. How about that?
I do teach at the PNWA, the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. I also teach at other conferences, probably 3 or 4 a year. There's a conference in Mexico I've spoken with, talked with a few times. I've done keynotes at colleges and libraries and just all over the place. So yeah, I try to give back as much as I can, and whatever works for me, at least I can pass that along. So
that's good for the upcoming authors, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there are a lot of them out there, and there are some really great authors out there. My daughter is one of them, so it's always I always try to help as much as I can.
Is she an award winner?
She is actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must be running in the family here.
She is a pretty amazing writer right now. Her 5th book is coming out soon.
Nice.
So yeah, she got her first book contract at 16. So it does
Wow.
run in the family, and she's a brilliant.
Yeah, maybe I should have a bit of a meeting with her too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Just let me know, and I'm sure she'd be glad to do it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool. So,
yeah,
so you mentioned the Pacific Northwestern waters,
yeah.
waterways. Yeah, can you tell us about that, the association, just a little bit about the
Yeah.
association?
Yeah, so I've been on the board. I was on the board for maybe 15 years. I just got off the board recently, um, to spend a little bit more time working on my novels. It's the longest running conference in the country. It's 68 years old, I think now. So it's one of the larger ones. There's usually somewhere around 500 attendees every time they have a conference. Now, of course, with new technology, they do an in person as well as Zoom
Yes,
classes. And then they also have additional classes throughout the year, and I'll be teaching one or two of those this year as well through Zoom.
that's pretty
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big organization. They really pay attention. They ask for responses from all the attendees, and they listen to them. You know, like we'll have different people coming in
Uh-huh.
that they recommended, different classes, the way they would like to see them. It's a pretty interesting organization, and it's very forward thinking. So
So it is actually one of the authorities as far as the author
yeah.
is concerned. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they usually
Yep.
have like 40 or 50 classes going at during their conference.
Wow.
Keynote speakers that are, you know, bestsellers. It's just
Uh-huh.
a really pretty
Yeah, that's
nice
awesome.
show.
And what was your
Yeah.
position in that organization?
So I was the agent and editor liaison. So I got to bring in all the agents and editors. So when attendees recommended a certain agent or editor, I would bring them in. Or if they said, we need people from tour, then I would go out
Uh-huh.
and talk to tour and bring those people in. So it was a lot of work, but it was
Yeah,
really gratifying. Of course, like like the rest of it, giving back is really important to me. And so bringing in the right people so that the attendees can meet the key people in this industry is
sure.
that's pretty important.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I know you went to 20 books to 50K. That's a
Yes.
big, big group, Facebook group.
Yeah. It is a
Yes.
huge group.
Right now, what is it? 60,000 right now? Something like that? 60?
Yeah, it's a pretty big group, and
Yeah.
they are focused only on self-pub authors, and
Yes.
so I've been published by a lot of small independent publishers throughout the years,
Hmm.
and it took me a while to get used to the fact that I could, you know, self-publishing was okay because I was brought up that any self-publishing was vanity publishing. It's not that way anymore.
Yes.
I know everything I need to know about the business. I know really good editors. Some of them work for some of the larger companies. Um, I do my own layout and design since that's what I do for my work. So having all those pieces allows me to get into the self-publishing thing a little bit easier. And of course, your help has been great. So,
Yes.
you know, all the pieces start to fit together eventually. And really, it's about pulling together the right team of people,
Yeah.
uh, you know, and letting them all do their job. And,
Yes.
and I think that's the key to all this. That's what the big publishers do. So why not a small independent author do the
Yeah.
same thing and then
In fact,
eventually
your
build?
friend of yours, Nancy, does the same thing. And I'm
Yes.
sure she's taking lessons from you.
Oh, yes. Nancy and I talk probably once or twice a month, and we
Uh-huh.
go through what we're doing and how it works and how it doesn't work. I have a couple of other friends that I do the same thing with, so we're always talking about it.
Nice.
I've been a little bit slow getting, like I said, accepting it. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I see some of these other people and they embrace it like I hadn't done for years, and I'm starting to. And 20 books was part of that, going to find out how everybody else is addressing the industry, how they get the word out, all those kind of things. So it was really interesting and entertaining. Yeah, I enjoy going to conferences anyway. I learned so much.
Yes, and I heard on 20 books to 50K that self-publishing, well, published books from the self-publishing authors now pass the trads.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, there is, of course, it's going to have to, because trads, just traditional companies, they just don't accept that many people.
Well, and what they've done over the years is been shoot themselves in the foot.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, we had 10 or 15 big companies that were acquiring books and buying second rights and all those kind of things. And then as they started to conglomerate, and now I think there's only 4 big ones, they want to buy all the rights, the hardback rights, the paperback rights, the everything at one time. Where it used to be you sold your hardback rights, and then they sold your paperback rights, and you made 50% of that. And then they sold something else, and you made part of that. Now they want to close it all up into one little bundle and give you one small sum. And then besides that, they don't help with any kind of, or very little, marketing or anything like that. So they're really, I think they're struggling a little bit more for that reason. And as entrepreneurs, as we are basically, come out and are capable and understand the business and understand finances and all the rest of it you need to know. And the technology, which is the big companies are slower getting into, they're not going to last. They're not going to last.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're going to last much. Yeah.
They're going to shift over to TV and movies and things like that, and other media.
So. I actually started seeing that there was a fair in Austin, book fair, and the big companies, they started shifting over to a TV, book.com or whatever, they named it. I was trying to get into establishing a radio station, online radio station. It's pretty hard. Of course, they have the money, but it takes a little time for us to do that. But they can just do it like this. But you're right; they started getting into that side of the business rather than just getting the rights. And well, how much did they give? Like 3 to 7% or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think it depends on what medium, but yeah, it's usually somewhere about that 3 to 12, I think, percent. Yeah. So it's very low. It's not, it's not very high. And that's on net, not on gross. So, I mean, so that they've kind of got you in a lot of different ways like that.
Yes.
What's interesting though is that all the television, all the movies, all the streaming services, all the online YouTube channels, everything else, they all need, guess what? Writers.
Right. Yes.
And books and stories.
Yes.
So the independent author right now has access to so many avenues because they're going to have to buy those things.
Yes.
My wife continually tells me the Shaman Detective series, which you worked with for a while, it's still my #1 seller, by the way, would make a great television show. And she's right. And eventually that's what's going to start happening because they need more and more material. And we're producing it. So
it's actually during the COVID times, it was much more apparent for Netflix. They just didn't have anything,
Yeah.
And of course, they couldn't produce anything. Everybody was inside, and it was apparent. Now they are running out, and you can just tell when you're watching Netflix. It's like, I can do that movie, with my cell phone.
Exactly. Well, and that's true. So I write about technology, and I have repeatedly written articles over the years about people who do start out with using their cell phone.
Yes.
And you can integrate it with special effects. You can do anything you want with your cell phone.
Yes.
Like you could a camera. So it's pretty interesting. The technology is taking us places that have been more difficult to get into, just
Yeah.
like what you're doing here. You know,
Yes,
20 years
exactly.
ago, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be on
We don't
video.
have this. Yeah.
That's right. You wouldn't have any of this.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. And I think for the person who's a little forward thinking and willing to put in the time and the work, that all these things can pan out pretty well.
Yeah. It's just discipline and perseverance. That's all there is.
That's all there is.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, and add to that motivation and curiosity, and you
Yes.
all you need. Yep. So it's pretty
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to switch a little bit, and I wanted to ask you a question about your author journey. So when did it start?
So I started seriously. I have a brother who's 5 years older than I am. And
Uh-huh.
so he was always reading books 5 years older than I was and would pass them down to me. So I started reading at a very young age. And in fifth grade, we were asked to write a short story. And that was it. That was the start of it. I started writing novels after that. I talked to my brother about all these things all the time. So I was really good in science and math and all that, and so was my brother. And we would talk science fiction books for hours and hours, and
That's nice.
read the same kinds of books.
So how many science fiction books were there that time? Two?
That was the heyday, wasn't it? In the 60s. I think it was the mostly late 50s and early 60s when I was reading all that stuff. And that was when, you know, weird stories and all those kinds of little magazines were out. And Asimov came on the scene at that time.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
Silverberg and oh gosh, Heinlein. That was really the heyday of science fiction for a long
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fifth grade, how old is that?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I was
14?
in
Like,
maybe
I don't know,
I
13,
was probably
something like that.
9 or 10.
9 or 10? Okay. So
Yeah, but I started school when I was 5 years old in first grade.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I
So
graduated early.
it must run in your family. Your brother, you, and your daughter, 16, getting her first award. Hey, yes. That's
Yeah,
nice.
we have a crazy family.
That's
I think
good.
my older brother, when he graduated, won maybe all but one award at the high school.
Uh-huh.
He still is brilliant.
Nice. Does he write?
He does not write. He
Oh,
did for a very short time when he was younger, but it was never what he liked to do. He's a software engineer, and so he writes in his own way.
yes. Yes. Okay, so you started writing, I'm just going to say 2 years. I was going to make a joke, so 50 years ago now, but I'm going to make 2 years ago.
That's right.
What type of novels do you write?
So I'm a cross-genre writer, so I read very eclectically, and they always tell you when you start out, they tell you to write about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was always reading so eclectically and watching and learning things. I kind of write in every genre I just feel like writing it. That's been a problem for me all over the years because they like you to stick in a certain niche.
Yes.
But at the same time, for me, it has to be fun and interesting. Otherwise, it's just another job.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just wanted to have a job, that's okay. But I like to have fun with it. So I do write more science fiction and fantasy probably than anything else. But I also write a fair amount of police procedural crime kind of novels as well.
That's what happens when you're smart, Terry.
that's the problem, right?
That's a curse. Yes.
But even my detective novels are often a little bit technology bent to them. So like I have techno mysteries, and then if they're not that, then it's shaman, because I'm very interested in all the shamanistic and spiritual side of things. So yeah, it's a good.
So I see a bunch of books in the back. So half of it like shaman things, half of police and technical, right behind you.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Behind me, a
cool.
lot of that is my reference section.
Ah,
I have a whole other wall here of books that, you know, for fiction and those kind of things. So I have reference, I have other writing books that I've read and continue to read. I tend to read
wow.
at least one writing book a month or so that I'm always learning the latest
Learning.
thing.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
if one thing we have to learn from you is keep learning.
yes, keep learning, never stop learning.
Keep
But
learning.
that's part of the
Yes.
thing that we talked about earlier, being curious. Be curious
Yes.
about everything. Um, my wife reads differently than I do, and she will often say, "Well, that was really good," and then hand it over to me, knowing that I will read it. you know, so, um, it's really fun to get into all these different subjects and then see
Yes.
how they mix and how they affect people
Uh-huh.
because the characters are always real people and they have emotions, they have likes and dislikes. Some of them think more and some of them emote more. um, but having all that input allows me, I think, to write realistic characters. At
And
least that's what I
multidimensional.
say. Mm-hmm.
Multidimensional, it's like yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, for some people that's hard. Actually, for most people, that's hard.
From
Yeah.
my readers say that I do it pretty well, so I'm going to go with
Yeah.
that.
That's good.
Most of the time. Yeah.
So you start writing a book. How long does it usually take to write a book?
Oh, that's a good question. So I
Oh, let
myself,
me before then, let me just ask, do you start on one book or do you start on a bunch of books at the same time and write in different times?
oh, that's a really good question. So that's more like a friend of mine. I write one book at a time.
Okay.
Um, I have I like to finish projects. So when I start a project, I like to finish it.
Mhm.
And so I tend to write one book at a time, but I'm always thinking ahead. So I always have three or four other books. Like right now, um, I'll be done with the book I'm working on now, maybe in another week or two, and I have four or five other books I could jump into. I'll wait to see which one rises to the surface, if you will. But then
Mhm.
once I start, then I'll work on that book consistently, day in, not yeah, day in, day out,
But the
daily.
ones cooking, are they in your head or
Both.
on the side? Both? Yeah.
Yeah, both. So I do take notes, and I have file upon file upon file. Every book that you've worked with so far, and I probably have another three or four ideas for novels in those same series. Um, Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have a single book come out, or in
Uh-huh.
my head. But it's always churning, I guess. And the more I read and watch television and read other books and whatever
Yes.
else, the more ideas come about. Ideas are, I've never believed in writer's block. It's like having talker's block. You know, if you start to have a conversation, you're talking. And if you
Yes.
have your characters start to have a conversation, you're writing. So,
True.
you know, writer's block to me is typically when the author is trying to push the book in a direction that it doesn't want to go.
Ah,
And I think you just
yes.
need to let go of some of that and say, you know what, I have an outline. If you have an outline, I don't always use them, and sometimes I do. But you have this outline and it starts to go off the outline. Instead of trying to shove it back in, just let it go. Let it
Let it go.
see where it's going to take you and go on that ride. And that makes it more fun and interesting. But when
Yes.
I do start, I write typically 1,000 to 1,500 words a day. So in 3 months, you have minimally a 90,000 word first draft. So some of my books are around 70,000. So in 2.5 months, I have that, right? Or
Yes.
2 months. So I could usually probably write 3 or 4 books a year. So I write the draft and then I rewrite. So that takes some time. And then I send it off to an editor. Then I make those corrections and
Sure.
adjust the book if there were things that needed. And then I send it off to a second editor, and I get that back. And sometimes either my daughter or my wife will read it, and they will catch a few things here and there that they think need to be touched up. And then eventually, but see, this is the key to self-publishing, is that is exactly what the big publishers do. The same thing. Now, if you have a college-educated editor who's got a degree or a certificate, you've got an editor that could get a job at Random House. They just choose not to do that. So they're just as good an editor, and they will give you the same kind of response. And so you can work from that and develop it into it. Once it's done, I can do all the layout. And then I hire out for covers because I'm not an artist. So knowing what you know and what you don't know helps. So I don't
Very
know.
much so.
Yeah. The covers you did for the Exit Earth series blew me away. They are literally the best covers on all my books. And I've used other people, but those are great covers. So it's just having all the pieces, again, having the right people and working on
the team.
Yeah, a team. And so usually I can get 3 or 4 books in a year. I could possibly bump that up a little bit if I wrote shorter books all the time, but every once in a while I'll write a 130,000 word book.
So when you're writing all this, I didn't hear a developmental person, the editor. It's just the editor, maybe a line editor or just a regular editor. You're not using anybody, you're not getting any help to develop your stories, in other words.
I don't anymore. I used to use a developmental editor years and years and years ago. I find that moving pieces around in a book makes it more difficult to keep the flow and connections. So if I start to move the pieces around, then I have to then reflow everything to make sure the person who knows something is supposed to know it at that time. And I found that when I did that, I sucked all the juice out of the story, all the energy out of it, because now I'm back to trying to fit things in instead of letting things develop on their own. So now, having said that, my daughter is different than I am. I am a fairly linear writer. And so that's partly why it works for me. My daughter writes a lot of times she'll write in 2 different times. And so she's very non-linear in her story development and will sometimes need to move things around. It just doesn't work for me.
That's it. No developmental, nothing, just let it go.
What I really like about my editors, what they do that works for me, is that they will say, right now I'm not liking your character. Is that what you want from me? So they will interact emotionally with my writing. And then other times they will say, he seems so, logical. I don't know why he would do this at this time. So those little key things, then I go back in and say, I better explain the thought process here, or
tweak it a little bit, tweak it over there.
Yeah, exactly. Show a little bit more about this so that they recognize that it's really there. So you said they're friends and they don't seem like friends. Well, that means I didn't show how their friendship developed well enough. I can go back and fix that.
So do you plan your books, the plot and everything else
Sometimes. So sometimes I don't. I just do it by the seat of my pants, and that
Right.
works really well for me from the get. I tend to be able to see ahead all the time,
Mm-hmm.
whatever's going on. And so I usually know the beginning, a couple scenes, and the end even before I start. Sometimes I do outline. I almost never stick to the outline totally, but it gets me into the book in solidly enough that when it starts to go off on its own, that I just follow. So
Well, it sounds like you're actually planning it, but it's just in your head.
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, no, I mean, there is a frame within that frame, and if somebody goes off, you don't care. You just follow it.
Yes, yeah,
It seems like
exactly.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's actually. I mean, some people just don't can't do that. They have
Yeah,
to stick to this thing.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not me.
That's
It's more fun when the path goes off in that direction over
yes,
there.
that's a very creative mind. No writers or authors block.
No, not at all.
Just
Not at
goes
all.
off. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing that I have to mention that I never get the talker's block. And my wife says that, just talk, constantly talk and communicate with people.
It's a skill, and
Yeah,
you
it
learn
is.
and you develop it. Yeah.
Yes. So when you're working on your books, do you reserve time during the day, every day, or how do you do this? Or
Yeah.
you
I
just sit down and write it whenever you feel like it?
I write the first thing in the morning. So my go-to is do what you love first, and nothing else can touch you. So I get up, I
Yes.
grab my coffee, I come into my office, and I start to work on my novel. I read what I wrote the day or 2 or 3 days before, and and touch it up as I go. I do what I call a rolling edit like this. So I touch it up, and I'm constantly going back and back and back. And then I'll write my 1,000 words or 1,500
Oh,
words. And then
that's
so I'm continually seeing the same material over and over and developing as I go. Um, if I find that I need to make a change up in the front, I create an outline as I'm going. So as I write the chapter, I have an outline that tells me what was in that chapter. And so if I think, oh geez, I need to introduce these two people earlier, then I go to my outline and in red, I put, you need to introduce these people earlier. So that when I do my rewrite after the novel's done, I've got all my notes, and then I start
okay.
to build that in.
So let's say that you wake up in the morning and you have, let's say, a 50 pages of a novel.
Mhm.
Do you go back and kind of like briefly read all the 50 pages and continue, or you just start on let's say the 30th page or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll read 5, 10, 15 pages,
Okay.
yeah, before. But
Yeah.
what happens is if I read 15 pages and then I write three or whatever it is, right? 1,500 words is probably 4 pages.
Yeah.
Then I
For
read 15, and I'm constantly going over the material
okay.
more than once. So by the time I'm done, I've probably gone through it 3 or 4 times at
Yes.
least. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So you briefly touched it before. You're writing, you're teaching. So what do you do to improve yourself as an
So,
author?
like I said, I do read other books. I just picked up John Truby's latest book on genre, and I've started reading that already. Um, and he talks about the different genres and how to mix the genres and how to overlap the beats that you need in each type of book.
Wow.
So we're
Okay.
covering all those pieces, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting read so far. Um, but so that's what I do. I keep doing that. Every time I go to a conference and have a talk, I will go to other classes. So I noticed that a lot of other writers don't do this. They'll
They
just go
stick.
teach their class and they'll leave. But
Uh-huh.
I teach the class and I go to three more classes. to see what everybody else is doing and how they're thinking about business, about character development, about dialogue, because everybody looks at it differently. Everybody teaches it differently, and you're bound to pick up little nuggets all the time. Yes. And if nothing else, they remind you, oh yeah, that works. That works, and that I'll keep doing that. Of course.
Yes, that works. Or maybe the little thing that you picked up and you can implement it into some character in one of your books.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I do it all the time, you know. Even when I'm reading, I keep a notepad next to me. If I watch TV, I keep a notepad next to me. My wife and I have been watching some cozy mysteries at night. And during the show, after a couple of them, I will stop at certain points and I'll say, oh yeah, 37 minutes in, this is what's going on. And sure enough, the next time we're watching one of them, this thing will go on and I'll say, oh, there it is. And I'll stop it and 37, 38 minutes.
There you go.
Because you can see the pattern that they start to create. Yes. And so that's really fascinating to me. So that's why I do this, because it's just a blast. I just love learning it.
That's Hollywood. Everything is all by the minute.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And last time I was watching something and I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, in Hollywood, actually there are 8 categories for movies. All these millions of movies that they make and everything else. Nope, she says there are 8 categories. They just fit it into one category and that's it. You just follow that. That's it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so who wrote the book Save the Cat? That's about movies. And then they have a Save the Cat for novelists. But it's the same kind of thing. It's how do you fit those pieces into it, and which kind of, is it a romance, or is it a bro book? You know, or is it about 2 people the same sex, or 2 people different sex? Is it 2, you know, a guy and an animal? Is it, you know, what is it that they're trying to do? But there's still all those avenues. That's one pattern, right?
Yes.
Just like you're saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I believe it.
So here's a good question for you. One recommendation to the new coming authors. What would you say to them? Other than keep learning. We already covered that.
That's right. I would say don't listen to the negative, or don't trust it. So you're going to get a lot of rejections. I was talking to an agent just a couple days ago, and she said, we were talking about getting rejections for what I'm sending out stuff. And she said, Terry, she said, I have 25 clients. I have 25 times more rejections than you get, because we get them too. She said, I have a guy I've had on my roster to try to sell his book for 4 years and haven't sold the book yet.
Nothing yet, huh?
Rejections. She said, so don't let that get you down. You know, do this again. It comes back to do what you love. Do it because of that, because you love it. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter. I would tell the same person when, and I have told people, I have 2 boys and a girl. And I remember my son one time talking to me about how some friend of his didn't like his fiance. And I said, you know, if you're going to listen to any of that, you're in the wrong place.
Yep.
You know, you choose what you care about and what you don't care about, and what you don't love. And that's what you stick with. Know who you are. So maybe, if anything, know yourself well enough to say, no, this is my choice. My grandmother used to tell me when I was young, listen to everybody's opinion and then make your own decision.
Yes.
That's the key. Make your own decision, because once you've made your decision, you're done.
That's it. Yeah. Your path is set. Just
That's
move.
right. And so just don't listen to everybody's negativity. Don't listen to the people who say, oh, I didn't know if I liked it that much, or whatever
Yeah,
they have
yeah,
to say. You know, their opinion is not important. You know,
yeah,
do what you love to do.
yeah. I actually I never thought about the agent's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
25 let's say authors, and each, let's just say 4 books, and she's trying to sell these 100 books. I can't imagine the rejections that she's getting.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
yeah. Oh, and she was complaining to me the same way. She's talking to me about how long it takes for editors to get back to her. Like she said, I'll send something out. It'll take them 6 months to get back to me. Why would that happen?
Wow.
You know, just
Wow.
those are crazy things. And so you realize that we're all in the same boat.
Yes, yes. And so you write all these books. I know that you did not do much of a book promotion, and that's
Right.
how we met.
Yeah.
So how did your perspective change from, going from the start to meeting me and then going forward? Book
So
promotions.
I think, like I said, I was with a lot of small independent publishers, so they were in control of the cover, the layout, what the price was, all those kind of things. All I could do is tell people I had a book out. That was all I could do. I used to say, I have a book out. Go look it up, or give them a link to Amazon or whatever, and tell them a little bit about it. And I have a newsletter, as you know. And so I would tell them about the book or where I thought it up or whatever else, just to get some interest in. And then on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And that was all I had as an option. When I when a few of those small independent publishers went out of business and folded, and I got
Yes,
my
I
rights back.
I'm dealing with one of
Yeah. And I
them.
got my rights back. Luckily, I can do layouts and designs. I bought the covers from those publishers when I could.
Nice.
If I
Very
couldn't, I had
nice.
to do
Good
my own.
decision.
Yep. And then I put them out on my own. All of a sudden, I can have a free book up or a
Yeah.
99-cent book and can say to my audience, oh my gosh, I have this 99-cent book. And I noticed that it made a difference, of course, you
Mhm.
know, not a big enough difference. And so knowing that kind of marketing and organizing, like which book to put out when and how and all those pieces, um,
Yes.
was a, a whole other thing that I was learning and trying to figure out, and that I needed help. And so um, right now we're building, a list. And
Yes.
so,
Email list. Very important.
yes. And so I've chosen, after talking with you a couple times, going to the 20 Books conference and talking to a
Mhm.
bunch of others, authors, that's probably the smartest thing for me to do at this point in my career, is
Yeah.
to get a nice, strong audience and then work from there. Now, I
Yes.
have recently, in fact, just today, um, put on Facebook that I'm looking for maybe 75 to 100 early readers so that I can get
Nice.
books up to them early. And if they're willing to do that, I will give them the ebooks for free,
Yep.
any other ebook I have at all, and all the rest of the ebooks I have forever. So they will
Nice.
be permanently free as long as it's an ebook, and they're willing to do a review. And so I thought I might as well go after trying to get
Absolutely.
pulled
Yes.
together. And so if
Yes.
I can
That is
get
nice.
75 to 100 people who are willing to do some reviews when the book comes out, I will give them early versions. They can read it. And we'll see.
Fantastic.
So, but all this I've learned from you and from talking to everybody else and trying to, you know, assimilate
Uh-huh.
all the pieces. So that's where we are right now. I expected
Cool.
all the work. So
Oh, I am guessing, so how long have you been writing again? For how many years?
40 years.
40 years. After 4 years, just give it another 6 months. Believe me, you're going to be in a perfect position.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So 40 years you've been writing.
Yeah.
I am guessing at some point you told, or did you tell your family that you wanted to become an author or something like that? Did you have this talk with your wife or your family?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been married more than once, and I did have one wife who thought I was crazy and um, said that that was not, I forget how she put it. She didn't think it was going to work out, but it didn't matter. Like I said, I get up and I do what I love to do, and that's it.
I was going to make a joke, but that's okay. Let's skip that one.
She's no longer my wife. Yes, exactly. That's true. That's it. But my birth family, my parents were big readers and would allow us to read anything. I was reading banned books when I was in junior high. At that time, they felt that learning and curiosity and all that stuff was important, and so they all read a lot. So when I started writing things, my dad had already died. My mom was behind it 100% and would tell everybody. My sister's the same way. So I have a very my whole family is a very good support system.
Nice.
As you know, my daughter's a writer. My wife reads
How
my
about the
material.
sons?
My two sons, one's a policeman and one's a nurse.
Oh, wow. Do they
Yeah,
write?
they do not. No.
Well, I can't imagine Nurse One writing. I don't think he would have a second to write. I'm just
Yeah.
imagining. I always see nurses
Yeah.
so running around,
Yeah.
very busy. Yeah.
He's busy, and my sons are like me. They both work very hard. So the son who's a nurse also owns a landscaping business that he runs at the same. I don't have no idea when he sleeps. That I offered him a laugh,
Yes.
but he lives in Florida, and so
Oh,
he does landscaping year round. And
yes.
when he's not at the hospital, he does double shifts at the hospital
Wow.
and runs his crew. So pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So, would you like to add anything else to our conversation? We're coming to the end of it.
Oh yeah, we are. So you really covered everything pretty well. I think yeah, I think you covered everything. Don't
Yes,
let other people take anything away from you. Do what you love to do.
that's the most important take.
Yeah, it really is. And then
Yep.
continue to learn it, which you will if you're interested.
Yeah.
That's why we do this. Find who you are, what's important to you, and you will spend time learning it, doing it, and getting better at it all the time. And it
Yes.
doesn't matter if anybody else thinks so. That's it.
Yep.
That's the secret. And then you have a
That's
good
the
life.
secret.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all this advice. I know you're just full of information. You teach to start with. Yes. I certainly hope the newcomers, particularly the newcomers, watch this either podcast as a podcast or a video cast and learn.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to recommend this talk to one of the authors that I just started working children's books. We're just putting out one book, and she's got like 10 more in the line. But she fits right into this bill. It's like very curious, incredibly curious. It's like, why is that? Why is that? So watch this podcast and video cast. You'll learn.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, this has
Okay.
been great. I really appreciate your time.
No problem at all. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome to Self-Publishing Authors, home for candid talks and honest recommendations, from book editing to book marketing, from author journeys to inspirations. Hosted by Gurhan Demirkan.